Good afternoon, and to those of you that are joining us virtually, some of you at least, good evening. We are very excited to welcome you into our home here at the Tech Experience 5G Hub. My name is Jason Mazer, one of the engineers locally housed right here at this site. We are really excited to be hosting another one of our speaker series, this time about the wide world of sports and 5G. Hopefully you're looking forward to it. Before we get started, I would love to have all of you that are seated in the park, as well as those still standing, please make your way forward to the seats up here. If you are lucky enough and you're in the first two rows, you also have a place to put your beverage and your food, so don't consider those as terrible seats. Perfect. All right. Between the exciting conversations you've had and networking, I hope that some of you have had a chance to already check out the live demos, as Jimmy mentioned before, from our network partners at Nokia, as well as one of the local startups, OneCourt. If you haven't gotten a chance to do that just yet, don't worry about that. At the end of this wonderful panelist discussion, you will have an opportunity again to continue your networking as well as check out the demos. A quick plug for us here at 5G Hub. We are here to help you, the innovator, succeed. So we ask you, please bring your projects forward, submit a project to work with us and help grow the 5G ecosystem. We've got kiosks in the back right under the southeast signage there. You can do it today online if you'd like. And if you don't have a project ready to submit, don't worry, not a problem. You could also do it online at techexperience.com. A little bit of housekeeping. I know we've all had a wonderful already beginning to this event. You've had some great networking conversations. If you feel the need to continue those conversations, please, if you wouldn't mind, go through the glass doors into our open collaboration seating space and continue your conversations there to allow the folks that are sitting quietly listening to maintain their concentration and focus. All right, I still see a whole lot of bodies in the park. I would love to encourage you to come forward and find a seat here so that our panelists can see a group of people that they're talking to and not folks just standing around the back eating. Okay, we're just about ready to start. We're very excited to have you here, like I said before, and I'll say it again. And stand by, we're about to get started with our sizzle reel, and the show will begin. Enjoy.
And good job, Jason, in getting everybody to their seats. That's impressive. Welcome to the 5G Hub, to those here in the room and to those joining us remotely. My name's Erin Rainey. I lead the Tech Experience program here at T-Mobile. And we have some fantastic speakers here this afternoon to talk about the many ways 5G is enhancing sports. And trust me, it is truly game-changing. So whether it's traditional sports like baseball and hockey to the rapidly growing world of eSports, 5G is poised to revolutionize how we watch, play, and experience these competitions. The increased speed and capacity of 5G makes it possible to transmit large amounts of data near real time, so fans can have access to instant replays, live statistics, and other immersive experiences with augmented and virtual reality, all making you feel as if you're part of the action, without that buffer and lag, thanks to the high performance and low latency of 5G. 5G also provides the ability to connect more devices simultaneously, creating a more integrated and seamless experience for fans and players alike. This can include everything from wearable technology for athletes to monitor their safety and help prevent injuries by sending data directly to their healthcare professionals, or to smart stadium features that enhance venue operations and create the customized fan experience. And 5G can improve accessibility of live sports for those fans who have had limited or no access at all. With the ability to broadcast and stream games live from just about anywhere, fans in remote locations across the country or with limited mobility can now enjoy the thrill of live sports from the comfort of their home or while they're out on the go. And T-Mobile has been enabling some of these exciting new sports applications. We've been collaborating with the MLB to create an immersive AR app, which gives epic live views of stats of home runs, along with enabling 5G cameras that virtually put fans out on the field to catch all the action from the player's point of view. We have also partnered with Red Bull to bring fans even closer to the live sports action of the famous Red Bull Rampage, with drone footage broadcasting over 5G, multi-stream experiences along with biometric and telematic data. And this is just the beginning. Today we'll explore how 5G is already transforming the world of sports and what exciting developments we expect to see soon. So let's kick things off, and please join me in welcoming our panelists out on stage. Welcome. Good evening. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
All right, as I said, you guys are in for a treat, some fantastic panelists. I'm going to do some brief introductions. First, we have Jason Elliot, Head of Cross-Portfolio Solutions Ecosystem Marketing at Nokia. Jason works with multidisciplinary teams and industry partners to promote Nokia's vision and technology leadership. Inspired by the power of people and technology, Jason strives to ensure that all types of audiences have the knowledge they need to be successful. And with 2 decades of IT and wireless communication experience, Jason has made several notable contributions, delivering on many industry firsts, has worked to educate and collaborate on how technology can be used to realize new business opportunities, and has addressed many sustainability goals towards a better future for all. Very nice. Thank you, Jason, for joining us.
Pleasure to be here, Aaron. Thank you.
All right. And next we have Jeff Holzinger, who is Senior Director of National Development in T-Mobile's technology organization. With over 21 years at T-Mobile, Jeff has held various engineering roles in local, regional, and national capacities. Throughout his career, Jeff has worked on launching several Gs and new technologies and has overseen the strategy for several non-macro deployments. Being an active member of the sports and technology community, Jeff supports many of the T-Mobile initiatives aimed at improving the fan experience and pushing the boundaries of how we use technology in sports. Welcome, Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
All right, and next we have Todd Harple, industry expert, innovation catalyst, strategist, and leader. Trained as an anthropologist, Todd has worked at the cutting-edge interface between people and technology, leading the development of services and experiences that shape how we use technology today. For over 17 years, Todd has been interested in connecting the physical and digital worlds on a global scale. From IP content on television to the advent of the smartphone, Todd's work has been perceptive across mobile industries, including technology, fashion, sports, and retail. Todd has also been responsible for establishing Intel's Olympic sponsorship roadmap. And from 2019 to 2021, Todd was an innovation consultant with the International Olympic Committee. Very cool. Welcome, Todd.
Thank you.
And finally, we have Nate Peterson, CEO of Tagboard and a Team Magenta alum. Welcome back, Nate. Glad to have you. Nate was T-Mobile's first ever social media employee, helping to build the early days of T-Mobile Social before leaving to build startups across the tech sector. Joining the Tagboard team in 2017, Nate has helped grow the leading cloud production platform used by more than 500 major sports and media organizations to produce shows you watch every day. From tweets about the NBA on TNT to stories produced across a World Cup and Super Bowl, and news stories we consume locally here in Seattle, Tagboard helps to produce engaging entertainment content for channels across the globe. Thanks for joining us, Nate.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome. All right, let's give this panelist a round of applause. Okay. I think most of you guys know the drill, but here's the drill. I'm going to start off. I'm going to ask our panelists a few questions, and then we'll turn it over to our audience. So the folks in your room, please get your questions ready. We'll have you step up to the mics. And those joining virtually or remotely, go ahead and put your questions into the chat, and we will read those off here for you. All right, let's get started. All right, so the first question, when we talk about 5G in sports, if you can talk a little bit about what you have been a part of enabling so far. What have you seen today, and what are you excited to see in the near future?
Erin, yeah, it's a great question. And Nokia is a B2B technology innovation leader, and we believe in the exponential potential of networks, particularly in industries like sports. And when you think about the sports industry, we've seen so many different types of use cases, from enhancing the fan experiences when you're actually at venue or within the arena in the stadiums to really augment those experiences, whether it be specific video playing angles of areas you can't see, or even actually if you're not at the venues and actually transmitting that visual experience to people that are not actually in those venues. So extending the fan experiences as well as enhancing it. And then also for operational reasons as well. So both the venue owners, the stadium owners, teams and players as well, using things like IoT and analytics as well to create more efficient operations actually within venues themselves, and then also to use analytics to enhance player and team performance as well. So there's lots of different ways 5G and wireless technology is really helping increase both the adoption of sports and the accessibility of those sports and those incredible fan experiences that we see.
Awesome, lots of opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Jeff.
Yeah, with T-Mobile, we're not new to the sports industry, but we've got some renewed and exciting new partnerships around 5G innovation. We're partnering with some of the biggest players in the sports industry today to really drive meaningful innovation around the fan experience and also operations for sports. An example of this is the broadcasting innovation that's going on. With the most recent All-Star game, we did 5G batting practice where we had 7 live streams, which brought really a first-person point of view to the folks watching at home and in the stands. And we've got some other exciting things that we're about to announce very soon as it relates to 5G sports innovation.
Awesome, thanks, Jeff.
Wait, it's kind of hard to add to these guys because these are the main use cases we're seeing out there. I mean, it's been very exciting to be on the very front end of 5G deploying at scale in terms of working, for instance, at the Pyeongchang Olympics in 2018. So we were starting to do things at scale that hadn't been done before. So we were the guinea pigs trying out how you bring people, like in an event where it's hard to watch live, how do you make that better for them? For instance, cross-country skiing. It's really hard to watch live. You watch somebody ski by and then you wait another 20 minutes for him to come by again. It's hard to follow your favorite person, and it's more fun to be at home watching it. So we actually deployed a system of cameras across the entire course so that you could follow your specific skiers all along. And that really was an initial eye-opener of, we could deploy this, out in these wide open sports to bring people much closer that are actually there at the games, as well as the people watching from home. And that's just the beginning, and I'm sure we'll talk more. But yeah, seeing that at scale the first time was really exciting.
Yeah, great example, thank you. Nate.
This is a great group. Thanks for having me. I've got ideas going right now. We're gonna have to talk some more over happy hour, right? The way Tagboard focuses on solving these issues is really a user experience problem in our mind. When you think about the rich data sets that are evolving today, there's so much data out there. What can you do with it is really dependent on how easy the user experience is. And so, we got our claim to fame by, things you have seen every single day on television, probably the most notable being the tweets that make fun of Chuck and Shaq on the NBA on TNT. Those have won 4 Emmys, for interactivity, digital interactivity. Now, what most people don't know is that process used to take 45 minutes just to get a single tweet into a graphic that looked and felt like the NBA on TNT and get it on air. Nowadays, what we had been able to evolve with these major media companies is to take different data sets, be able to have a simple search bar, think like an Instagram story. You search for your data set, you drop it into a graphic, you put it live. If the user experience is that simple, imagine the type of content that's going to be able to be created. Imagine the people who can create it. It almost democratizes production in that sense, and that's kind of what we're focused on, which is highly dependent on not just the user experience, but speed and reliability.
Awesome, great. So I want to dive a little bit deeper on the user and the fan experience, because that's definitely a theme that everybody spoke to. In your opinion, what is the number one thing for the sports fans when it comes to an experience? What's most important to them?
Todd, do you want to take that one first, or do you want to go on?
Where to start?
You're the anthropologist here.
I like to start with the mundane. I mean, we were chatting about this before. As far back as the first modern Olympics in 1896, some of the very same things were central to the fan experience. Public transport. How do I get from transport into a venue? Can it happen smoothly? It's getting better, and 5G can help with that. How do I get to my seat and understand what the view will be when I get there? And will it be unobstructed? Again, if you read the reports from the 1896 games, this was thought of. And, and then finally, refreshments. How do I get food? And add on to that restrooms. How do I get there? What's the best line? And these are all things that now with IoT and with 5G, we can both target people based on preference, as well as just make it so much easier to go to a venue. It doesn't have to be a hassle getting in and out from parking or public transport all the way through enjoying the game. So I think the most mundane things are going to actually be some of the most magical.
Great.
Yeah, I tend to agree that frictionless experience, where things don't go wrong is really good. And then once you've built on the basics, the fundamentals of that fan experience, then you can talk about the enhancement of the visual side of the experience as well. So whether it's remote camera feeds or personal direction or instant replays, those sorts of things, or getting the stats on all the plays as well. I think that's kind of the next part of that evolution overall. But it is very important to get those fundamental basic things right, because we all want that kind of very simple experience when we pay money for these events, right? So, but yeah, definitely. A lot around kind of being able to direct your own personalized viewing experience, I think, is another key element here as well.
Yeah, I think it's about sharing the experience too, right? So whether it's through a text message, Instagram, Facebook Live, whatever the case may be, people want to share those experiences when they're at the World Series or they're at the All-Star Games or Formula One events, right? They want to share that with their loved ones, with their family members and friends. And then, we partner with the Little League, right? So during the Little League World Series, not everybody can go watch their kids play, right? Whether there's family members overseas or here in Seattle when they're playing ball in Pennsylvania. But due to our 5G technology, our 5G cameras, that can be shared across the globe anywhere in an instant.
Yeah, we focus, a lot on that fan experience across the screens inside of the stadium. And so, 5G-enabled stadiums and arenas are really a game changer. It was only a couple of years ago, I remember being at MLB All-Star and sitting next to a friend of mine, and we saw a program being run where you had to download the app in order to participate in the program that was being run on the screen. And I looked at her and I was like, how many people do you think are doing this right now? Because A, you don't have the service that is good enough to actually get the app downloaded, but then it was gone by the time you had the app downloaded. And you fast forward to we have a partnership, a league-wide partnership with Major League Baseball, same as T-Mobile, different circumstances. But we help with the technology there, and this last year you're seeing QR code technology that fans can scan and interact with different things. So which hat is the ball under, right? You can easily scan and vote on that inside of MLB's ballpark app because of the speed of the stadiums and then also the technology that enables it. So it's not going against the grain of saying to fans don't use your phone in the stadium. They're going to use their phone in the stadium. So try to engage with them with those screens in the down moments when they're not watching the game.
Yeah, like talk a little bit more. Maybe Jeff, you can share with us specifically around stadiums and venues, because I know you've helped with some of these deployments. I guess walk us through a little bit of the process, and then how do you help ensure that this 5G is able to support and then also enhance and bring these new services?
Yeah, so supporting venues is a very challenging part of my job. T-Mobile's got a pretty robust toolbox in terms of spectrum. Unfortunately, we don't own many of the solutions inside these stadiums. They're owned by third-party operators such as Crown Castle, American Tower, and unfortunately, even our competitors, AT&T and Verizon, own a lot of these. So it's very difficult to go through your acquisition process, your applications, negotiating contracts, and then upgrading the system. If you think about it, all of these systems inside these venues are very old, right? They started with 3G, which were very limited. This was back when people were maybe texting. There might have been a picture mail, more phone calls. Then we evolved to 4G, which had a little bit better functionality overall. But now with 5G, it's a game changer. It's very multi-dimensional, so we've got all sorts of different spectrums, at least for us with T-Mobile, mainly in the mid-band, but we also deploy millimeter wave too. Millimeter wave doesn't work on your traditional DAS or distributed antenna system, and you have to have a all-in-one radio deployed throughout the facility, which brings a new challenge. So I don't know if anybody's familiar with SoFi Stadium. I'm sure everybody is, but in the center, they have what's called the Oculus, which is the big, huge scoreboard. Yeah. Now, that's where we had to deploy all these millimeter wave radios. So if you can imagine, before the Super Bowl, having to have all sorts of lifts and people rappelling from the ceiling to install millimeter wave radios prior to the Super Bowl, it was a challenge. So trying to partner with third-party operators and the competition to deploy 5G is probably one of the biggest challenges. But it's a good challenge. I like a challenge. So, we're doing pretty well with it. We've got a long way to go with deploying 5G in venues, but we're getting there.
I was there, TikToking my experience of Dr. Dre and Eminem on my T-Mobile 5G service. So
one of the best halftime shows ever.
It was
I agree.
the best halftime show I've ever seen.
By far.
It's awesome. Okay, well, the Super Bowl is a pretty big sports event, but so is the Olympics. Todd, I'd love to hear maybe a similar perspective in terms of your role and what you've seen, how 5G's helped the Olympics recently, and then kind of as you're looking forward.
Right. Well, I was fortunate to get a real upfront seat for it because Intel signed on in 2017 as the official 5G sponsor. And so for me, as an innovator, as somebody who's usually on the front end of understanding people and building use cases, it was pretty exciting. But of course, the time frame we had at the very beginning was really short. So between establishing the sponsorship in June of 2017 and then actually deploying in February of the next year for real game time was a challenge. But now that I've seen us build out the roadmap, starting with Pyeongchang, through Tokyo, through Beijing, and now all the way into Paris, we see 5G really blossoming. So the first was about large-scale deployment. Can we do it? Can we do things like 360 VR over 5G crossing Korea? Yes, tick that off, we did it. Can we do an event like cross-country skiing? Yes, we did it. Can we ring an arena with 100 cameras that with 5G connectivity can be so quick that you can then quickly look at a figure skater almost like a flip book and see all their moves in detail? Yes, we've done it. And so then Tokyo was more about building scale. So Tokyo, we were doing things like having 4K drones and 4K cameras on vessels, all capturing sailing activity happening, and then merging it into one massive screen to show in the harbor. So there was a barge with a massive screen that was merging 3 different streams, so it was 12K in total over 5G, so people could watch sailing, because typically that's not easy to watch. You stand at a harbor and wait. It's the same with all these other sports, and you start to see, wow, 5G can make this immediate, it can make it really happen. And then another one that we did in Tokyo was sort of visionary about what could happen in the future with our own personal devices. We had head-mounted displays at the aquatics center to watch swimming. And you were able to, because when you're at a live swimming event, there's no like stripe in the bottom of the lane that says this is Michael Phelps or this is the American lane. It doesn't work like that. You just see swimmers and their heads pop up and down, and that's about it until the end of the race, and then you see the scoreboard. But we created a scenario where you could actually see the lanes painted on there with the name of the swimmer and their nationality while you're watching live. So again, it's one of those weird situations where live is sometimes not better than watching on TV, but this actually brought it up and made it better. And then in Beijing, we went a step further. We started to do things around broadcast. You start to reduce the amount of equipment required. You start to reduce the latency so that it becomes more and more compelling to a broadcaster. When you're getting down below 200 millisecond, down below 130 millisecond, that's live. And we were not expecting to have anything live, but we were very fortunate that during the opening ceremonies, there was a pan shot out to our live 5G camera that made it into the broadcast. And we're like, oh my gosh, this wasn't supposed to be live, but we'll take it, So it's very exciting to see it scale and to see it grow from, and to be on the front end of it, right? So this is all before it was ever really happening. We were doing it, starting in 2017, 2018. And wait till we see Paris. Paris opening ceremony is going to be along the Seine. So people are going to be on barges riding. That's going to be the athlete parade. So you can imagine the connectivity challenges we'll have there that are going to be really exciting to beat.
Those are some awesome examples. Thanks for sharing those. So I want to maybe talk a little bit about the device ecosystem, because we do talk about this with the different verticals that we've discussed here at the 5G Hub. When we talk about sports, and I'm not just talking, the devices that the fans would use, but whether it's the equipment, the cameras, what's the current state of the device ecosystem?
Yeah, there's a very robust ecosystem for 5G right now. Obviously, 5G is not a one-and-done activity. There's several iterations to 5G in terms of the standards, and then the devices that come out. We obviously concentrated on what we call enhanced mobile broadband, first of all. So this is very high peak, high capacity. That's why you see the smartphones and tablets, first of all. The second phase, if you like, of 5G is really talking about 5G Advanced, which is kind of commercialization around the 2025 timeframe. And that's where we talk about the IoT devices, or RedCap, or reduced capability. So this is kind of for the IoT type devices that you currently see on 4G today. And there are lower cost devices, lower cost chipset-based devices, and they offer the kind of levels of battery energy performance that you need for IoT type services. So whether you're tracking high value equipment, across the entire Olympic venues, or wherever, or high value assets inside a stadium, or you want to embed the technology into players and teams and performance for tracking, we're going to see a lot of evolution in that area with 5G when it comes to IoT in that time frame.
Thank you. Anything else to add?
I think just seeing the advancement of the camera in smartphones has just been incredible, and I look forward to seeing more advancements in terms of what the cameras are able to read by way of data and then serve back. We've seen when you were talking about the Olympics, it's an unlock for the story to be told that all these athletes that are all around the Olympic Village are uploading things to Instagram and Twitter and TikTok, and that can instantly be used by NBC on their broadcast to get a behind-the-scenes view of what's happening. Now, if you think about how cameras and some of the technology is able to read that data in the future, imagine if it can give us the speeds or the putt length of Phil Mickelson walking up and is about to make a putt, what's the distance and how fast can you pull that into a graphic that informs the viewer, and then can that viewer touch something on their screen that says, I think he's going to make it or I don't, right? And that stuff really excites me because it's pretty close to being executable right now, and we're testing out a lot on that front.
We are almost there.
Yeah.
We're this close to being able to do that, and that's the exciting thing. I think before 5G we had social and we had spatial, but they weren't connected. So if you had a smart venue, it was slow and it wasn't real time. But with 5G, we're starting to see some real time connection between the social and the spatial. And this, I think, I don't like to talk about the metaverse because I think people do a poor job at defining it. But to me, this is the metaverse. When we combine social and spatial with near real-time connectivity, that creates excitement and opportunity to do a lot of interesting things.
Yeah, and actually, so if you talk about spatial and immersive experiences, like you're just talking about, Todd, so we actually have a demonstration here as well that actually shows that from the Tampere Arena as well. So you'll get to see what that experience really looks like, because we've actually done it for real in the Tampere Ice Hockey Arena in Finland as well, and that gives you that full immersive spatial experience as well.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to ask one more question here that was submitted online, and then I'm going to turn it over to the audience. So you guys want to get your questions ready and go ahead and step up to the mic, or again, submit them online on the chat. So a question that was submitted, I'm interested in the sustainability partnerships and efforts being made in this area as we move to 5G and even 6G are being discussed.
Yeah, I mean, from Nokia's perspective, I mean, we are very, very focused on sustainability. It's actually the sixth pillar of our refreshed corporate strategy. I mean, everything in terms of how we utilize technology for the better of good, so increase productivity and efficiency for all sorts of business, including the sports industry. So if you're trying to reduce energy consumption within your business using IoT to track energy consumption, if you are thinking about reducing waste, that's another issue as well. So there's lots of projects around that we've been working on as well, how you use renewables as well and connect that to a digital grid. And the other things as well we have to think about is not just the environmental energy efficiency thing, but the social and governance part of ESG. And in terms of things about, as we start to use things like AI, machine learning, what are the ethical principles around that? And we've developed the 7 ethical AI principles around that. And there's lots of forums going on right now from the commercial public side and private partnerships as well to figure out, how do we think about ESG and the application as technology? And actually, as we start to think about 5G advances that bridge into 6G, which the Bell Labs team at Nokia right now is actually already starting the research work on with view to commercialization in 2030. And actually, the ATIS Foundation here in the US and the National Standards 5G, 6G Forum as well actually has working task groups specifically tackling environmental sustainability issues in the development of 6G as well.
Excellent.
Yeah, and sustainability is huge here for T-Mobile, as you know, Aaron. So from a venue standpoint within sports, there's not an event going 24/7, and we install sometimes hundreds of radios that suck up a lot of power. So what we do in between events is we're working on ways to shut down those radios to reduce our power consumption and save money at the same time. But from an electricity standpoint, that's something that's very important to us with overall sustainability.
I think for me, from a sustainability perspective, the biggest story to start with is really around reducing the amount of equipment required for broadcast. So right now, rights-holding broadcasters will bring literally hundreds of miles. They'll bring a mile of cable or more. Many miles. 129, I think, was the figure for 2018 Winter Olympics. And of course, the Olympic Broadcast Service has theirs, so there's miles and miles and miles of heavy cable that's not only being shipped around, but it's being stored, and it takes a while to lay out. If we can just cut that even in half, the amount of carbon footprint just from reducing travel alone is huge. And then with things like more real-time digital twins coming online, we can cut down site visits, which we did for Beijing, by allowing real camera placement, without having to make multiple trips to site. Instead of making 4 trips, maybe you make 1 or 2. And these things, they eat into the carbon footprint as well. But I'd like to see a more commonly acknowledged way to measure these things. I feel like we haven't done a good job establishing clear metrics. Here's exactly how we will measure this so we can compare apples to apples. And I think that's a big challenge coming forward as well. So that way we don't just talk about it, we can demonstrate it.
By the way, Tagboard's hiring for an evangelist.
There we go.
All of the massive hardware industry. So
Next role.
we were just talking about this backstage, and it it was only, a month ago now, the months are blurring together, but in Scottsdale at the Super Bowl, I'm walking through with a number of clients and investors on the footprint around Fox that, it's not all theirs, but everybody who is broadcasting from there, would probably take up this entire warehouse, right, in terms of equipment. And we walked them into the Tagboard area, which, again, Tagboard is it's a software. You use it, with an internet connection and a laptop. And so we walked them into our area, and it was a footprint that was, probably smaller than this right here. And a guy sitting there with his laptop, and they're like, "So this is it?" And he's like, "Yeah, you're watching the Herd, Colin Cowherd show right now." He's like, "We're producing the graphics on the show." They're like, "Well, what about when you were doing World Cup?" And he's like, "Yeah, we kept 15 people back from going to Doha. We kept them in LA because they could do it from their house, from their couch if they wanted to." So, that's how we're not large enough of a company to help with the sustainability footprint that some of you guys are, but that's how I think about it, is just, to your point, the less hardware, the less resources, the less people you need to ship around, the more efficient everything is going to become, and that's good for the environment.
Yeah, it all adds up.
Yep.
It does.
Yeah, it does all add up. I think that's what you got to realize. It's like, I think each of us always think, oh, well, but it's only just this bit. But the whole point is you have to look at the big picture. It's just that's the thing you need to think about.
Absolutely. All right, do we have any questions here in the room? Now's your chance. I know we have sports fans in here. Any questions? Oh, here we go.
Is it on? Yeah. So my question is 180 to your last question. Monetization. So I recently relocated here from Israel, and my 20-year-old son stayed in Israel. And one of the things I miss the most is watching football, soccer games with him, whether it was live in the stadium or at home in front of the TV. And I was wondering if I would be willing to pay, $10, $15 a month subscription to be able to watch those events over VR together with my son, getting the experience of him sitting next to me and us yelling at each other. But is that how you guys see this being monetized, or different models? What's your thoughts on that?
I'll take one part of this, because we were just discussing this earlier, actually. So there's two parts to this. There's the technology discussion, and there's the business model discussion. So on the technology side, this is where we're really at the sweet spot of where networks meet cloud, to create that experience where you want that same experience as someone that's not physically there with you. So the programmability of the network that's coming up right now, that's being developed, that we are working on with T-Mobile as well, is going to allow you to be able to create those types of experiences, because there's going to be capabilities for both the sports teams, the broadcasters, to be able to tap into the network through APIs to then create the right service layer where the network meets the cloud to kind of create those experiences. Now, the question becomes on the broadcasting rights and the business models. So probably one of you guys probably know this a little bit better than I do. So
I think if there's money to be made, the use case will come up. I mean, that exact use case we played with in our labs at Intel several years ago. How do we make a social experience? Because sports is a social experience, and how might I watch it with my college buddies or something like that? And it's a combination of challenges, right? Figuring out how you deal with the rights-holding broadcasters, because right now it's kind of a gray area in some cases for the VR broadcast. And VR broadcast, the uptake is quite low because head-mounted displays are bulky and not fun to wear. So we have to wait for that to get somewhere. When the uptake gets better on that, these things start falling into place. And I think it's getting there. It's slowly getting there, that eventually we'll be able to have, I mean, we've projected holographic images already, so we're getting closer.
I'll start with a disclaimer by saying that this is opinion only. I don't actually know any of the details on this, but there's a huge shakeup happening currently, and it will continue in terms of sports rights. So much of it you can read about, whether it's RSN's model not being successful to, even like the Pac-12 here at home is arguably facing a lot at the moment, and everybody needs to be rethinking these models. And I think to your point, it's, I got to be careful how I say who's ridiculous, but it's ridiculous. Like, I can go, I think I was in San Francisco and I wanted to watch a Seahawks game and I couldn't watch it. I could not figure out how to watch it, even after purchasing multiple, like I will buy up everything I can possibly buy up to get my Seahawks game on. And I couldn't figure out how to watch it because we were too close to the stadium. And so they blacked it out. Yep. And I was like, this isn't it, right? This isn't the model. It's gonna have to have some sort of on-demand component, and then you're also going to see, like rewinding back to what I said originally, like the user experience enables different types of content, right? So if you think about if anybody watched Amazon Prime Thursday Night Football, it was actually a great example of what's coming. You have one bit of media rights that were purchased for Thursday Night Football. They parsed that into anywhere between 4 to 8 different streams every time they ran it, and it was different. It was different commentary. It was different visuals. They ran one with Dude Perfect. Dude Perfect, the kid show, right? So more personalization is coming within all of these streams, and each one of those are going to be monetizable. And you think about 5G connectivity, cloud connectivity, the data layers that you're going to get on top of that are going to start to rival social media, which is, again, where I got my start trying to convince people to give me budget because they're like, why would we shift TV budget? I'm like, because we know everything about everybody that's on their social network. Like we should target them, right? It's terrible to say, but like that's the reality we live in. If you have those data layers, you can serve people a much more personalized experience. And the world's starting to come around to that too, saying like, I do want that personalized experience. I want to be able to watch something with my son halfway across the world and laugh about it. And maybe we're making prop bets with each other, whether it's over our phone or over VR or whatever it is, but it's coming.
Yeah, I have a bit of a different perspective on that. Great question, by the way, but it's on the sponsorship marketing side of the house, right? We used to spend millions and millions and millions of dollars. Some people spend billions. Not us, but we spent a ton of money on that. And now the game's kind of shifted as to where these leagues, these sporting companies, they want the tech, right? Everything these guys mentioned here, the tech enables, and that's what we deliver. So there's a lot of balance of trade or value in kind trade going on to help monetize or offset some of the costs that go out the door for that sponsorship opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is an incredibly interesting topic, and to move it a little away from entertainment and more back to who's got skin in the game, I see this as a great convergence between the pinnacle of human performance, and you have 5G, which is kind of the pinnacle of our connectivity technology right now, and then you have IoT, which is the forward-most staged sensors we could do right now. So all three of those combined give us a lot of really good insight to what's happening on the field, which you talked about, from being able to see that data real time, or near real time, excuse me. But speaking to the people who have skin in the game, can you guys talk to me a little bit, or talk to us, excuse me, a little bit about the applications you're seeing in terms of performance improvement or injury mitigation, either at the team or individual level? I mean, this is really interesting stuff, and you guys have a much better perspective than I do, so I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I'll start off with SailGP. I don't know if you guys are familiar with SailGP. It's essentially the Formula One of boat racing, right? So they have their vessels called the F50. We've started a new partnership with them last year where we deploy a hybrid 5G private network to support telemetry services, ship to shore, basically, routed through the Oracle Cloud. All of the team has wearables that looks at everything from heart rate to did they fall off the boat and in the water and need to be rescued, to wind conditions, waves, et cetera. And all that data is taken back, computed through our Oracle Cloud, and it's shared across all the various teams. So what the American boat sees is shared with the Spanish boat, and et cetera. So that's one real use case for how I see not only wearables, but cameras, various IoT sensors that are on these boats, is helping promote the sport and make it better with 5G technology.
Yeah, I mean, for us, something that we showed at Intel, we showed at the Tokyo Olympics, if you recall seeing sprinters and you saw like little streams come out behind them showing their reaction time, their speed, their top speed, their time at top speed, all of that was like just the icing on the cake of what we were actually delivering. We were actually tracking 21 different points on each of the 9 sprinters with getting detailed biomechanical insight without any sensor suit, off with the camera. This was all with basic cameras with a lot of back-end AI and quick edge computing and some cloud. But we were able to derive detailed biomechanical insight that we used ahead of the games with athletes themselves to improve their game. And in the games, we used it for storytelling. It was used for storytelling and sprinting, and then we reused the same technology in Beijing for opening ceremony when you saw like about 20 skaters all skating on this ice, and it looked like there were snow streams coming out behind them, like they were skiing in it. That was all detailed biomechanical stuff that was represented in the story of the stream. So, I mean, and a lot of these tech companies like Intel have done a lot of other things behind the scenes as well. I mean, we developed an AI coach with Oakley, that you could talk to it, how's my workout today, and things like that. And that made it to market. It was fun.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing requests for more biometric data and stuff that you can include inside of graphics to tell a unique story. That's pretty much where our purview on this ends, is just like making the data readily accessible and available in a graphic for them to tell that story. But I would say, to your question, like, the best way to really like understand who is doing what is just look at the investments that are made from the major leagues. They're usually public, right? So you look at the companies that they're investing in and then go research the companies that, and the technology that they're building, and it'll show you some of the things that they really care about. And there is a lot of work being done on injury prevention from all the major leagues. They're investing a lot of money in there right now.
And the athletes will want to monetize it before long. Yeah. I mean, this is their IP. I mean, we had to actually contract elite athletes with full knowledge of what we were doing to be able to capture their style, their running style, to be able to then build our AI models. And I could see in the future that, becoming a lot more expensive of a venture, and even like here at University of Washington, there was a researcher who was using the FIFA video game, and he was extracting detailed biomechanical insight from it. Is that legal or ethical? Or will it be legal or ethical in the future? I don't know.
But go dogs.
And not just on the sea, on the land as well. So we were doing a lot of testing with some things like NASCAR and then like MotoGP and stuff like that. So they're getting like real-time telemetry data from the actual vehicle as well. So not only the performance of the athlete, of kind of like how they're performing inside the vehicle, but also the telemetry data on the vehicle as well. So yeah, there's so much here. We literally are scratching the surface.
Thank you. Next question.
Todd actually hit on a question I was going to bring up, and also, what's your name? Nate from Tagboard mentioned with NCAA is nobody really talked about investing in the athlete, the creator, the talent, whatever you want to call it. And I think there's a movement that more tools are going to come out for the name, image, and likeness of these athletes that actually I think they're going to disrupt the venues, like Oakview Group, who, for those of you who live in Seattle, know how much it costs to go to games and how much they're jacking up prices, maybe a la the whole Barbara Streisand ticket scandal that happened years ago, whatever else. So I'd be curious to see and hear about innovation that's happening for name, image, and likeness, such that the actual talent and creators are the ones who get the money versus the record company, so to speak.
Well, with the NCAA ruling, I mean, this is starting to happen. College athletes and below are starting to be able to monetize their name, monetize their likeness, and we'll see more of that with like NFTs and things like that. There are some places you already can pose with your favorite player at the stadium virtually, but it looks like you're with them. I mean, that stuff will just continue. I can imagine an athlete making a coaching app, with their likeness, their style, their biomechanical insight, and that you buy into that so you can train yourself. I mean,
Well, one of my favorite
happening.
trends right now is just seeing professional athletes, retired professional athletes, and what they're doing with their after years of playing ball for so long. Shameless plug for Jermaine Kearse. If any of you are golfers, you should go check out Evergreen. It's his facility in Redmond that he built. And I was in there the other day checking it out for the very first time, and I'm not going to claim I was talking to them by any means, but Richard Sherman and Cam Chancellor were playing in a bay right next to us, and I said to Jermaine, I said, you three have such an audience that is going to forever follow you that. Imagine if you just ran a simple live stream of you guys playing a round of golf, it would be watched. And then you think about, giving power back to the athlete. You don't need, but you don't need a ESPN to run that, right? Like you could run that on YouTube, you could run that on Twitch, and there's a million different ways you could monetize it if you're them, because they come with an audience. And to your point, it starts with at the moment with the collegiate athlete and NIL. I'm still, I think, want to be cautious with with collegiate athletes just because they're still students, they're kids, so you want to be able to give them a more lightweight package. But if you sat in on any of my investment pitches, it's not about changing the game for the broadcast industry, enterprise broadcast, right? Like we talk about democratizing broadcast. I want to be able to hand Jermaine or his manager or somebody else that laptop so that they can create their own stream, monetize their own stream, and own their own revenue stream off of it.
Sorry, just exactly what Cameo is all about.
Yeah.
It just reminded me this past weekend, Yanni Gordy from the Seattle Kraken sent a good luck message to our Seattle Juniors hockey team that was playing in a tournament this weekend. And so our club posted it, and it really motivated a lot of people. It's a good way to connect to the community. So thanks for that.
Yeah,
That's
Cameo
awesome.
is an amazing example.
All right, sounds like we have a question online. Jason.
We do, and there's a little bit of a forgive me if there's already been discussed, but from Austin Siedenhoff, I'm interested to learn more about the differences in capability between a DAS network in a stadium versus a private network. Which offers better throughput or latency?
Yeah, it really depends on how much spectrum is allocated for a private network versus the commercial network. If you think about the DAS, that's just a way to distribute the spectrum throughout a building or throughout a facility. The private network portion would still likely ride over a DAS. You would just have a slice of that spectrum allocated for a particular purpose, right? Let's say it's for stadium operations, something like that. But it still needs to be distributed somehow throughout the facility. And again, it depends on the use case. It depends on the amount of spectrum being allocated or sliced off to support that. So it's not really a hot or cold type answer because there's many different variables involved. But the private network space is really evolving. I know we were talking about this earlier, but we're partnering very closely with the Nokias of the world to really evolve the private network space so that we can have cohabitation within a venue that has both private and public wireless to serve the needs of both the fans and stadium operations or team operations or league operations. So more to come on that soon.
Well, in private, to some degree, you can actually tune it to the use case. So you can
That's
do a little
exactly
bit better of tuning to the use case. So in some ways, that has the edge because otherwise it's kind of generic coverage.
Yep, yeah. And one other thing that's really neat about private networks is the edge, right? We can do on-site edge computing for extremely low latency to get exactly what that use case needs. So there's some pretty cool stuff going on in the private network space.
Thank you. Another question.
Hi. Aaron, I just want to say thank you for hosting, panelists, thank you for being here, and also all of you from the 5G Hub who organized, thank you. This is an awesome event. This is my first one, so I'm excited. Will not be my last. So my quick question is around accessibility. 26% of Americans deal with some type of disability, roughly 1 in 4. And when you look at those, roughly half of those are vision, hearing related, and majority of those are mobility. When you're thinking about devices, when you're thinking about the power of our network and the spectrum that you mentioned, and when you're thinking about what my favorite bar pickup line is, which is the mundane is magical, which despises me, I'm very mundane. I really do believe that. I think the mundane is magical because that's where a lot of things that we take for granted, it's the opportunity that others would really help bring them into new experiences. When you think about that and accessibility, what opportunities have you guys encountered that can help bridge that gap and helping those who do not have the access that majority of us enjoy when it comes to sports? Have you seen any movement there? What are you seeing as far as coming up on the horizon that we can help them with?
Great question.
That's a really, really great question, actually. And I think a lot more work needs to be done in the technology industry to address this. And this is great with forums like this to actually spur those conversations. I will say, there is a great demonstration, and I'm forgetting the name down at the back there, but they talk about haptic feedback for people that are visually impaired to actually do the video analytics for the experience. So there are things like that that are being created for those experiences to create that greater level of inclusivity. The power of that technology is exponential, right? We need to do that, but I think it's the power of collaboration in terms of understanding what the needs of all different types of audiences, not just the general populist type audience that we think of. And we need to understand that and listen to those different audiences to develop those solutions. Because you're right, I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're a consumer with a disability or whether you're an athlete as well that is looking to compete. There are technology solutions out there. There's other things for hearing impaired in terms of visual acuity solutions using AR, audio acuity solutions as well to help those people with those impairments as well. So I think this is an extremely important area for us as an industry to explore a lot more, but it needs a lot of collaboration. It also needs private and public funding to be able to drive that accessibility. It's very, very important. We were just talking about this earlier.
Yeah, I mean, it becomes a little bit tricky because everybody looks at the bottom line. And when you're doing something for a fraction of the population, people will be like, why should I do that? And you say, because it's the right thing, you know? And, you know, we worked with a company, when I was at Intel, we worked with a company called Good Maps. And the idea was that they did detailed, like LiDAR-based mapping that we assisted them with so that sight-impaired people would have such detail that they knew every crevice and it would be easy to navigate inside, because that's usually the big challenge is inside navigation for sight-impaired. So we worked a bit on that. In France, in the lead up to the Paris Games, I've seen a company that does, I'm trying to remember the name of the company. I'll remember it probably 20 minutes from now. But they made this board that when you're watching a ball game, somebody who's sight impaired can feel where the ball is on the field. So this board is like the shape of a football field, and they feel it all the way so they know if the ball is down in the end of their team or not. You know, it's a little thing, but it's something there. Paris, I've had a lot of talks about accessibility with folks because that city is quite difficult if you have an impairment, especially a physical impairment. I mean, I tried to drag my bicycle across Paris, and it was not easy. You know, that was my imagination of what it would be like to try to get across with a wheelchair, and it was nearly impossible. You know, so there's a lot of work to be done, but it's happening. And then on the athlete side, there's a bit of a democratization happening because really, like the elite para-athletes, they get equipment from one company, and it's really expensive, and it really gets, you know, given to only those who meet that criteria. But now there's a bunch of little startups popping up. There was a company called Hopper that popped up, and it was interesting. It started with students getting cast-off carbon fiber from Airbus, taking it to people at Solomon and saying, hey, can you help us make a blade out of this? And magically, you get good running blades for significantly less cost and shared with a lot more people. So there are things happening, and it's, yeah, you got to start looking for it and then start holding that stuff up when you see it.
Yeah, and folks with disabilities, I mean, it's hard to, like you said, go through Paris or for the Las Vegas Grand Prix this year, for folks who are in a wheelchair. How do they find their way, right? Vegas isn't an easy town to get around, especially when they have the whole strip closed off. So some of the new applications and features coming out with wayfinding, I think, will help them as well. But for that, you need a powerful network to power those applications. So I think there's a lot coming, but we have a long ways to go before we are anywhere closer to some of the stuff you're talking about there.
All right, so I have a follow-up question. We've talked about a lot of really incredible applications and use cases. So what's slowing us down? What are the current obstacles for us to help accelerate this? What does this ecosystem here, what can we do to help?
I think there's a lot more to be done, just as we're doing now, the education of the capability of the technology, the exponential potential of networks to drive that. So understanding kind of what those technical capabilities are, I think that's very important, first of all. And yeah, we have to be flexible about the business models and the partnership. Collaboration is so important, not just in terms of innovation and co-building solutions, but how you go to market as well. And we should be using these digital platforms that we have at our disposal to create that level of engagement, that speed of engagement as well. So I think that's probably a two-pronged approach.
Thank you.
Yeah. You've created this beautiful playground here, right? So we need to bring more innovators in to create some really cool stuff that's going to take this to the next level. I mean, there's not a ton of 5G use cases today, right? It's, hey, check out how fast my speed test was, or hey, I downloaded this movie in 2 minutes. We've got to bring in more innovation on solutions, products, and services that's really going to jumpstart this 5G use case.
I don't think technology is going to be the barrier. I think it's going to be social, political, and ethical issues that are going to be the real things we need to work through, to make these things happen, in addition to the business models. I mean, there are so many things that challenge us with who owns what data. This athlete, do I own that data because I tracked it? And then when we start looking at other places in the world, the rules that protect individuals and their data differ dramatically. I mean, in Europe, GDPR is really challenging to do innovation around personal data. In Asia, in many parts of Asia, you can just go ahead and do it, but it feels wrong. And it doesn't feel right to my sensibilities of, that is somebody's IP. So how do we respect individual IP? How do we innovate when different company boundaries hold us back? Like with 5G, when you bump up against somebody else's cell, then you got to fight that person. It should be easier than this. It really should. So yeah, I think there's social, political, ethical, and business models are going to be the bigger challenges than technology.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would follow on to that and agree that for us, it's a people issue, and it's a speed to want to change and accept change and/or embrace it.
And a vision for it.
And a vision for it. Yeah, it's we work in an industry where we talked about this backstage. There's sometimes you'll walk into these massive media companies and there's 5 people in the entire building that know how to use the massive hardware system. Those 5 people fear something that is much easier to use, and therefore they will block you at every turn to try to get in the building to help them understand a more efficient way to create content that comes with all the benefits of that. It'll happen, right? It's just it's one step at a time. It's telling the right story. It's reaching people where they want to, meeting people where they are. It's not like they're bad people for not wanting to change. It's just, getting that time and that effort in the right place to sit down and say, there's ways that we can do this better that are going to enable incredible experiences, and you should be a steward of that. You should be a champion of that.
Great. Well, thank you. Last check. Any final questions from the audience? Yes, please. There's a microphone right up here.
A buzzer shot.
Next person up to the mic needs to bring me a beer.
Oh.
Thank you. Beautiful experience here. Nathan, a lot of golf references. That's why I wanted to ask a question. You mentioned Phil Mickelson.
Oh, you're coming up.
What are
with
you
the
guys doing
reference,
with Live Golf? Because the golf world is so polarized with
Yeah.
what's happening with Live Golf, but
Yep.
I know some of the best players are on the other side.
Yeah.
Are you guys doing anything with Live Golf?
We are. Yeah, we are, and I'm proud of it. I mean, I don't get into the political issues of X, Y, and Z. I mean, there's a lot of folks that are going to bring up where did the money come from? Well, we could say that about almost any entity. So I'll just leave it at that. But Live to me is very fascinating. Live to me actually reminds me in many ways of T-Mobile as a brand when I first joined the company back in the day. It was a company that needed to challenge the status quo, and you see they do it with branding, they do it with golf. Yeah. If you go to one of the events, you'll see that it is an inclusive place to be, and golf is, notoriously an exclusive sport. And this is coming from someone raised by a single mom without anything growing up. I didn't even touch a golf club until about 3 years ago and learned to play the game. And so when I go into country clubs, I feel awkward. And when I go to Live, I'm like, this is me, like this is my style. And so I've been working closely with their team, their investment committees, all this, like to talk about there is a real opportunity to build an inclusive brand in golf. And I'm excited to see what they do with that because I think there's a lot of opportunity there. Even when we were talking about earlier with Jermaine and his place over here, Evergreen, you have a lot of former athletes that now play golf. That's the next thing that they do. That's also a chance for them to make money. It's a sport you can play until you're, 75, 80 years old.
Or they cycle.
Yeah, exactly.
Cycling's the new golf.
Yeah. So I think there's tons of opportunity there, and I think, don't believe everything you read in the press, right? I mean, there's a reason why there's PR campaigns out there saying certain things because nobody likes competition when you're the only dog in town. I can tell you firsthand from those early days of, fighting against AT&T and Verizon, like, one of the ways in which we won was just challenging every single step of the way. I mean, I remember sending tweets. Actually, I should tell a story really quick because it's a good one and it's relevant to T-Mo. But one of my favorite moments ever as a T-Mo social manager, I actually believe Patty Raz, who's now VP of social for T-Mobile, was standing right behind me when AT&T tweeted the lamest thing I've ever heard in my entire life at us. And we just gathered around and we're like, what would John want us to say, right? And then we had more free reign to challenge the status quo. And so we tweeted back within seconds. And they can't respond because they had to go to their PR and probably to their legal and all this stuff. And it just wasn't the way that we treated things. And so, my favorite part of that story was the next day, an article came out in BuzzFeed, and it says AT&T and T-Mobile get in a Twitter battle. T-Mobile wins.
Love that.
Long-winded answer saying, like, I think, pay attention to Live. I mean, I'm not saying you got to love it or hate it, but like, it's always good to have competition in sports, and especially when a sport is so concentrated in a certain way. It's time to expand that.
And it's ironic, PGA is obviously trying to bring in similar no-cut 3-day, 4-day events, and I think
they pushed them to change a little bit, right?
Yeah,
And I love the PGA. I love all their events. We work with them closely on a number of fronts. It has nothing to do with them. I think it's just in the sports industry in general, like it's healthy to have competition. That's what sports are about.
and they're bringing in technologies more now. They're kind of pushed to it. I mean, Intel's done 5G at US Open, where you can have people walking around with a tablet and see their favorite player, wherever he is on the course. And we did this in Tokyo as well.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, there's going to be alt streams in the next couple of years that are just following players around or following a group around. And imagine just being able to, microtransact whether, who's going to win on that hole, make prop bets, even if it's just gamification and you're not actually betting anything, it makes it more interesting.
Yeah, there's a tiny company called Quintar that's been doing golf where you can look in augmented reality and see like the apex of how high it went and how fast it's going and how far it went, all like through augmented reality, thanks to great connectivity.
I do not want them tracking my shot.
And Nathan, you brought up Evergreen, and I follow them. Well, I have a 7-year-old, and he's in a golf academy in Issaquah. It's called the Pacific Northwest Golf Academy. Shame, plug in for them.
Yeah.
But they all use TrackMan, and they play amazing courses in wintertime in Seattle, right? In summertime, they are the Newcastle Golf Course. And my kid, I know I restrict him on Instagram, but he follows so many 7-year-olds on Instagram who have 50,000 to 100,000 followers. And we were talking about monetizing for athletes and NCAA college athletes, but there's a different group of people, like 7 to 14, who have like 50,000 people on Instagram, right? And it's amazing what's happening with the sports, especially with golf and other sports, right? So
my oldest son just turned 7. That terrifies me.
And in live streaming from inside where, like you mentioned, Jermaine and Redmond in the Evergreen, that's like people would love to watch them on Twitch.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
And there's ways in which they can monetize their own platform and everything that they've built, Those 3 are Super Bowl champions. They should have a life of being able to monetize against that in various ways. They've got a lifelong fan base for anybody who is a Hawks fan, in the last 10 years. So.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm at Headspin and Valley Startup. We work with a lot of companies in the Seattle area. We help you measure your digital consumer experience. So look up us at headspin.io.
Nice.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I think we are out of time. So let's give our panelists a big round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome conversation, you guys. Also, audience, great questions, great engagement. So a couple of plugs here. Good news is we have our next speaker series on April 18th, and the topic is healthcare. So please go to our website and register. Hope to see you all back here on April 18th. Let's see, also, for those that are here, again, we have the 2 demos with Nokia and OneCourt, so please be sure to check those out. We'll continue to have some networking and happy hour. And the last plug is some exciting news. Tech Experience is on LinkedIn. So you can go out, follow us on LinkedIn, and you can hear all the happenings at the 5G Hub and the Tech Experience program. So thank you very much. Have a great evening.